Hello, my wonderful third graders. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We are still learning about the ancient Roman civilization. This is lesson 3, Roman gods and goddesses. Look at the picture, the illustration on the cover of our unit. What are some of the things you see that we've talked about so far? Who do you see that was in our legend yesterday? Some vocabulary words you will hear throughout the lesson. Boisterous. It's an adjective. It describes something very noisy, lively, active. Maybe your mom or dad would describe you as boisterous. Bountiful is also an adjective. It means plentiful, having an abundance of something. It means you have more than enough of something. Elaborate, also an adjective, means, elaborate, not elaborate. Elaborate means made of many carefully placed or arranged pieces or parts, sophisticated, highly detailed. So you might have an elaborate painting, something that's beautifully made, right, with lots of details. Inhabitants are people or animals who live in a specific place or habitat. Rituals is a noun, it's a thing. Important ceremonies that are part of specific cultures and traditions. And the word worship, which is also one of our spelling words this week. It is a verb. It means to show respect and love to a god or a person. So we have been talking about Rome, which is actually the capital of the country of Italy that we now have today. Can you find Rome on this map? Rome is on the peninsula of Italy. Remember, a peninsula is a piece of land that sticks out and has water on 3 sides of it. And it sticks out into the Mediterranean. Also notice where the country of Greece is, to the right of Italy. Greece has the capital city of Athens. It also is a peninsula in the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Greek mythology also, and how it compares and contrasts to Roman mythology. So remember that they're pretty close together. So they would trade and they'd have dealings with each other. So they knew a lot about each other. Here's a closer picture of Rome. You can see the Tiber River that we talked about last time in our legend of Remus and Romulus. Okay, Pompeii that we talked about, where Mount Vesuvius erupted. So in the legend of Romulus and Remus, you heard about 2 Roman gods, Mars and Tiberius. According to Roman mythology, Mars is the god of war and Tiberius is the god of the Tiber River. Who can tell me the difference between a legend and a myth? The story we heard yesterday was a legend. What we're going to hear mostly today are myths. We're going to talk about myths. A legend usually involves real events or real people in history, such as Romulus and Remus. They could have been real. We don't know for sure. But the story about them is often exaggerated, and all or parts of it cannot be proven to be absolutely true. There's no proof that it's all true. Whereas a mythology, is a collection of myths or stories associated with the beliefs of a particular group of people. Right? So it's something that a group of people believed that explain why people act a certain way, how things came to be, or how things happen in nature. So people made these stories to explain different things that happen because they didn't know about science and different things in nature that we know about now. Although we consider these myths of the god and goddesses to be fictional today, many Romans believed that the gods and goddesses were real and worshipped them as part of their religion. Romans believed that their gods and goddesses had supernatural powers or skills and were immortal or able to live forever. Many of the gods and goddesses the Romans believed in were similar to those of the ancient Greeks. People or cultures who believe in many different gods are called polytheistic. So the prefix poly means many, and the suffix theistic means having to do with a god. All right? So remember, I told you the other day that if you believe in one god, you're monotheistic. That means there's one god, whereas polytheistic means more than one. Many Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans are polytheistic because they believed and worshipped many gods and goddesses. Actually, there's some cultures that still believe in more than one god or goddess, like the Hindu culture in India. All right, let's get started. In the legend of Romulus and Remus, you heard about a Roman god named Tiberius, the god of the Tiber River. Remember, according to ancient Roman mythology, or the collection of myths people believed, Tiberius was just one of many gods who ruled the earth. What word have we learned that means believing in many gods? That's right, polytheistic. To understand Roman beliefs and religion, let us first think about some of the early inhabitants of what we now call Italy, the people who lived there and whose children and grandchildren would later be called citizens of Rome. Back then, before Rome was a powerful city, most people in the area, such as the Etruscans and the Greeks, were farmers. What do you see in these images? These are artifacts, different artwork that archaeologists have found that show the different jobs that they had back then. So you can see pictures of farmers. That is how we knew that they were farmers, because we see it in their artwork and the artifacts that are found. The life of farmers may seem simple to some. They plant seeds, wait for the plants to grow, and then harvest the fruit of their labors. Some farmers work with livestock. You can see in the picture the animals that they had. There's a lot of hard work involved, but even if you are willing to do the hard work, there is a lot of uncertainty in farming. The weather is the biggest uncertainty. For farmers, rain is precious. If farmers' crops don't get the rain they need, then no amount of hard work is going to help them at harvest time. That is when they bring in all the food they have grown that they will need for the coming year. In ancient times, people had very little scientific understanding about weather and climate patterns. They did not have a scientific explanation for why the seasons change, or even why day turns to night. Do you know what causes the seasons to change? It's actually the tilt of the Earth's axis as it rotates and revolves around the sun. And what causes days to turn to night? It's the rotation of the Earth on its axis in relation to the sun. So as the Earth rotates, it changes day and night. All people knew was that they had to survive in a challenging and dangerous world in which anything could happen. Floods, droughts, diseases, and plagues of insects, just to name a few. Sometimes things were just fine and farmers could enjoy great bountiful harvest. Other times it rained just enough for farmers to harvest the amount of food they needed. What do you think bountiful means in this context? It means above and beyond what is needed, abundant. Working the fields all day, an ancient farmer must have had time to think and ask questions about why things were the way they were. Why does it rain some years and not others? Why are my sheep healthy while my neighbor's flock of sheep became sick and died? Why did a flood come and wash away all my crops last year? So what do you think they thought up while they were coming up with these questions? A farmer who was living in the area that is now Italy around the time of Romulus and Remus might have had answers to some of these difficult questions, but they were not all based on science. The answers were often based on myths or religious beliefs which were passed on by parents to their children. These beliefs were shared by neighbors and even by the king. An ancient Roman farmer would have believed in a god named Saturn, who was, according to myth, the god of the harvest, who existed before all the other gods. Who can tell me where else you've heard the name Saturn? Similar to Mars, Saturn is also a planet named for a Roman god. I wonder if there'll be more. Whether the harvest was good or bad, the Roman farmers believed that Saturn had something to do with it. If the harvest was bad, that meant that Saturn was mad. If the harvest was bountiful, then that meant Saturn was happy. This painting shows a statue of Saturn holding a scythe in one hand, a tool used by farmers to cut wheat. You can see it in the picture. Ancient Romans tried to keep Saturn and other gods they believed in happy. Romans participated in the yearly Saturnalia festival in late December to honor Saturn. This was a time of boisterous celebration with singing, dancing, and feasting all day and night. If a celebration is boisterous, do you think it's calm and quiet or loud and festive? Somewhere nearby, there might have been an elaborate temple for Saturn. A temple is a type of religious building in which people worship a god. What do you think the word worship means in this context? It means to demonstrate respect for someone or something. This picture shows a well-preserved temple that was built by the Romans in what is now the country of France. This temple gives you a good idea of what a temple built to worship a Roman god looked like. Inside the temple, there would have been a statue of the Roman god and an altar or special table where gifts could be left for the gods. Priests were often dedicated to a particular god. Priests dedicated to Saturn lived in his temple and performed rituals or important ceremonies to please him. They made offerings to Saturn, sometimes sacrificing a lamb or delivering some other food to the temple to thank him for helping with the harvest. Alright, this is the Pantheon, which is a famous temple in Rome. This is a famous temple in Rome called the Pantheon. It was built to honor all the Roman gods and goddesses and is well known today for its magnificent dome and oculus, or open eye to the sky. The Romans improved upon the architecture of the dome, and this dome is the largest of its type in the world today. You'll have to tilt your head to look at the picture. Agriculture was not the only thing to which the Romans had a god. In fact, some ancient Romans believed that the world was ruled by many gods, each of which played a special role in keeping order in the world. Romans were not alone in believing that there were many gods. Such beliefs were common throughout the world at the time. As you heard earlier, the Romans had similar ideas about gods and goddesses as the Greeks and other neighbors in the Mediterranean region. East of the area that is now the country of Italy, there is another area that juts out into the Mediterranean Sea. This is known as the country of Greece. If you compare Greece and Roman culture, you will find many similarities. Why would they have similar cultures? Can you think of any reasons? Well, first of all, their location, right? They had the same climate around the Mediterranean Sea, so they probably had similar food. Okay, things like olives. So they had similar gods and goddesses because the people grew up in similar areas. In ancient days, it was easier to travel by boat than by land between the areas where Italy and Greece are today. Both of these countries were separated by a fairly narrow body of water that is dotted with dozens of large and small islands. Ancient people of Greece and Rome often came into contact with each other on these islands or on one another's coastlines. As people searched for new places to settle, this close contact brought lots of trade between people, including the blending and exchanging of ideas and beliefs. So here you can see how close Rome and Italy were. They were really close. There was only a little bit of water in the Mediterranean Sea to separate them. Many Romans had heard of Zeus, the god of the king of the Greek gods, who was believed to rule over a collection of gods, including Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Apollo, the god of sun, music, healing, and knowledge, Ares, the god of war, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom and understanding. Greeks went to Athena's temple and worshipped her when they needed help with tough problems. She was also considered to be the goddess of war, which is why she has a spear and a helmet. What city in ancient Greece was named after Athena? The capital city of Greece, if you see on this map is called Athens. It's named after the goddess Athena. So here you can see in this chart, which is a text feature, you can see the names of Roman gods and Greek gods. You can compare and contrast them. The Romans also believed in and worshipped many of the same types of gods and goddesses that the Greeks believed in, although the Romans had different names for most of them because they had a different language. Some historians would say that the Romans borrowed these gods and goddesses from the Greeks, although the idea of many of these deities may have already existed before the Greeks and Romans would have encountered each other. The Greek goddess of wisdom, Athena, was similar to the Roman goddess Minerva. The Greek king of the gods was named Zeus. The Romans called their king of gods Jupiter. Jupiter, that sounds familiar. Don't we have a planet called Jupiter? Another planet named after a Greek god or a Roman god. I wonder if there's any more. Instead of the Greek name Ares, the Roman god of war was called Mars. Instead of the Greek name Aphrodite, the goddess of love was called Venus. What? Another planet named after a Roman god. I wonder if you can remember all of those. Do you know who this is? Look at the very bottom, the guy with wings. Maybe you've seen him on Valentine's. This is Cupid, the Roman god of love and desire. Cupid was thought to carry love arrows. According to Roman myth, he would shoot people with these arrows and make them fall in love with other people. Interesting. The Greeks called their god of love and desire Eros. Do you see one name on the chart that is the same for both the Greeks and Romans? Yes, they both had a god named Apollo, the god of light and music. Like the Greeks, the Romans believed that some of the gods and goddesses lived in a palace on the very top of Mount Olympus in Greece. These beings were known as the Olympian gods. So you can see in the picture where the Mount Olympus would be. You can see it's the red dot on the map. And you can see a picture of the mountain that they thought was Mount Olympus, where the gods lived. Ooh, look at this. Who is this? Some of the myths of the ancient Romans were also similar to Greek mythology. Greek and Roman mythology involved lots of fascinating characters, including monsters and famous heroes. Can you think of any famous Greek heroes you may have learned about or know about? Do you remember one we talked about from the Human Body Systems unit? Something about a heel. Do you remember talking about Achilles' heel? He was a Greek god. Hercules was one such mythical Roman hero. According to both ancient Roman and Greek myths, Hercules was the strongest man on earth. He was special because he was believed to be part god and part human. His father was Jupiter, king of the gods. There wasn't much that Hercules couldn't do. According to several myths, Hercules killed dreaded creatures. One such creature was the Nemean lion, a vicious man-eating lion with a magical protective hide. Hercules was sent out to kill the Nemean lion to please a certain king. After Hercules successfully killed the Nemean lion, he kept the lion's hide to protect himself on future adventures. To many ancient Greeks and Romans, myths helped explain the world. If you take the opportunity to read and study some of these ancient myths, you will begin to understand how important they are to our own language and culture today. For instance, if anyone ever tells you that you will need to complete some sort of Herculean task, you'd better get ready for something really hard, some real hard work, because it means Hercules himself would barely be able to do it. A Herculean task. Sometimes you all think doing your reading work is a Herculean task. What is a myth? A myth is a story told by ancient cultures to explain how and why something came to be or happen in nature. Are myths fact or fiction? They're fiction. They're made up. How is a myth different from a legend? Myths are completely fictional, whereas legends are partly based on factual people or events in history, even though they are usually exaggerated. What did some inhabitants of Rome and inhabitants of other places that had polytheistic beliefs do to please the gods they believed in? What did they do for their gods? They would worship the gods, celebrate with boisterous festivals, and perform rituals such as sacrificing animals and delivering food to the gods' elaborate temples. Why were there many farmers in ancient Rome? Agriculture and farming were very important to the ancient Romans' way of life, right? They didn't have just grocery stores, and even though we have grocery stores, it has to come from farms. Why did the ancient Roman farmers want to please Saturn, the god of the harvest? They believed that a bad harvest would result if he were mad, and they tried to keep Saturn happy so they could have a bountiful harvest. Let's compare and contrast the culture of the ancient Greeks and Romans. Well, what were some similarities? They were both polytheistic and believed in many of the same types of gods and goddesses, as well as in many of the same mythological heroes and stories. Because the ancient Greeks and Romans lived near each other and came in contact with each other often, they exchanged many ideas and shared similar cultures. They had similar foods, including olives. Some differences are they each had their own language and had different names for some of their gods and goddesses. The Greek civilization existed before the Roman. They each developed different cities and eventually countries. What is this text feature? It's a chart, right? It's a chart that shows us the names of Greek and Roman gods. If you could create a myth, what would it be about and why? I think we'll be writing some myths soon, so maybe this is a good time to start thinking about a myth that you could write. What would you write about? In the read aloud, you heard somewhere nearby there might have been an elaborate temple for Saturn. Say the word elaborate with me. Elaborate. Elaborate means highly detailed or made of many carefully placed or arranged pieces and parts. Asian civilizations had very elaborate forms of writing in which each mark has an important meaning. Have you ever seen or made something that was elaborate? What was it? All right, if something's elaborate, it has lots of parts, it's usually beautiful. There might be an elaborate painting that you saw. Maybe you went to a beautiful house that had elaborate things, really nice things. All right, good job, third graders. Our word for today is elaborate. See if you can use it this afternoon in our afternoon meet. Remember the word elaborate.